First, the USDA's Justice for All non-discriminatory statement, which simply states that all persons must be treated equally without regard to their race, color, national origin, sex, religious creed, disability, age, political beliefs, or reprisal or retaliation for prior civil rights activity, and that our institution provides an inclusive space for all. For more information on the And Justice for All statement, please visit the USDA's website.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Commie, and I work for Rutgers University, their extension program in Burlington County for SNAP Ed. And today we just wanted to come live and do a short little lesson on healthy fats and oils. So I'm here in my home, and we are going to run through what fat and oils are. We're going to run through healthy fats and not so healthy fats. We are also going to do a small activity just to show you a comparison on examples and things that you can make in your everyday life with change due to healthy fats and healthy oils. And then we are going to wrap up with some tips. And then at the end, we will have a small survey if you would like to fill out just about this small lesson. So just wanted to start off with going over what fat is. What are fats and oils? So fat is a nutrient that your body needs for daily energy and for daily function. So fat also helps other nutrients do their job in your body. So overall, it's a good fat. It's a good nutrient. We all need fat for our health and for the well-being of our body. Now, there are different types of fats. Fat can be in 3 different forms. Oils can be in 3 different forms, and today we're going to talk about that. So when we talk about fats and oils in my plate, the reason why fats and oils don't have their own specific category on my plate, like grains, vegetables, fruits, is because on my plate, fat is in every category. So all 5 categories can be fats and oils. So the total fat consumption that we are all supposed to be having on a daily basis, if you follow the 2,000 calorie diet per day, it's about 20 to 30% of your total calories should be fat. And less than 10% of your total calories of fat should be saturated fat. So we'll go over what total fat is and what saturated fat are, and to give you an idea of, are you eating majority saturated fat, unsaturated fat, or trans fats, and what kind of fats do the everyday food that we eat fall under. So when it comes to the fats and oils, they can be in 3 different forms. Like I said before, saturated fat, trans fats, and unsaturated fats. So a couple of the names sound very similar, so let's go over 2 that don't have similar names: saturated fats and trans fats. So they're pretty similar in form, in physical form, and in taste. So saturated fats and trans fats are all solid at room temperature, which means that they include animal meats, dairy products, and baked goods, things like that are high in saturated fats. They can also include trans fats. So the difference between saturated fats and trans fats are saturated fats are solid at room temperature, but trans fats are actually manufactured fats and oils. So trans fats they go through a chemical process called hydrogenation, and hydrogenation is created from vegetable oils exposed to a chemical. So it makes the shelf life of that fat higher. So it is more solid at room temperature and can sustain a higher shelf life. Shelf life just means what types of foods that don't expire fast. So it can last longer, and it's chemically made. And a lot of foods actually contain trans fats and saturated fats. Comparing saturated fats and trans fats, saturated fats are better than trans fats. Trans fats, like we mentioned, are chemically made, so they aren't the best for you. A lot of states across the United States and a lot of major cities have actually banned the use of trans fats in foods. So, like I said, we will go over examples of trans fats and saturated fats, but let me tell you about unsaturated fats. Similar sounding to saturated fats, which is the not so great fat, but we see it a lot. So unsaturated fat is the good fat. It is called unsaturated fat because it is fats and oils made from monounsaturated and polyunsaturated fats that are primarily plant-based. And these fats are the good fats because they actually lower your bad cholesterol and raise your good cholesterol. So they're good for your health. And to note the difference between saturated fat and unsaturated fat is that unsaturated fat is liquid at room temperature. So saturated fat is solid, trans fat is solid, and unsaturated fat is liquid at room temperature. So let's go over some examples of what unsaturated fats are and saturated fats are. So I'm going to move my camera down so you can see my table. On my table, we're going to lay out some examples. All right, so let me move this out of the way. So as you can see here, I have laid out two sides of the table. One side on the left is saturated fats and trans fats, and on the right we have unsaturated fats. So again, saturated fats and trans fats are pretty similar in their form. They're both solid at room temperature. Unsaturated fats, on the other hand, are liquid at room temperature. These are more of the not so great for your health fats because they can typically elevate your cholesterol, and on the contrary, unsaturated fats lower your cholesterol, the bad cholesterol. So I'm just going to go through a couple of food examples that we commonly see on our day-to-day life that would fall under either the category of saturated fats and trans fats or unsaturated fats. So first I have a bag of potato chips. Potato chips come from a vegetable, but since they are fried, they are typically fried in fats that have saturated fats and trans fats. Next, we have vegetable oil. So vegetable oil comes from a plant, similar to soybean oil, corn oil, and olive oil. Vegetable oil is actually an unsaturated fat. Next, we have olive oil, and similar to vegetable oil, it is an unsaturated fat, and it helps to lower your cholesterol levels in your body. Also helps decrease the risk of heart disease and other serious illnesses. It's an oil that is it's a healthy oil that is in liquid form, similar to vegetable oil. We have butter next. Butter is actually a saturated fat. It's one of those foods that you can use but should use in limited quantities. To substitute for butter, you can use vegetable oil or olive oil, just because saturated fat foods like butter tend to raise your LDL cholesterol levels, which is the bad cholesterol levels. Next we have, it looks like a T-bone steak. So a T-bone steak is a meat. It comes from cow, and since it is from an animal, this would fall under animal fats, which we find in our common saturated fats and trans fats category. So again, it's an animal fat, which tends to raise the bad cholesterol. Next, we have nuts and seeds. So nuts and seeds are actually very fatty, but in a good way, because they fall under unsaturated fat. They actually provide us with good fat like omegas, and they can help lower our cholesterol, the bad cholesterol, while providing us with fullness and protein. Next, we have avocados. Avocados not only, they don't only contain unsaturated fat, but they're also packed with like really great vitamins and minerals. Avocados can be used in substitutions for other fatty things, and they can make like creamy, nutty dressings and dips, things like that. It's a really great fat, and it falls under the unsaturated category. And last, we have our baked good. We have a donut here that looks delicious. Donuts are baked goods, and they are processed and fall under the saturated fat category. Like I said earlier, many major US cities have banned trans fats from being used or sold in products, processed products. However, there are some cities in the United States that still have trans fats present in their food. So donuts from a bakery or on shelf typically have trans fats in them, so they have a higher shelf life. And that falls with a lot of baked goods and processed foods. They typically have trans fats in them in order to increase that shelf life, keep them on the shelf longer. So just a summary of what we just did, this small activity, was just to go over examples of saturated fats and trans fats and unsaturated fats in everyday life, in everyday food that we come across, and to give you an idea of why one is healthier than the other and why one should be limited. Saturated fats and trans fats should be limited in your daily diet because they tend to raise the bad cholesterol, and that puts us at risk for heart disease and high cholesterol and other serious illnesses that are food related. On the other hand, unsaturated fats tend to lower the bad cholesterol, and that they can fill that void of still flavoring our foods, still cooking to add fat in our food. We need fat for our bodily functions, our total fat consumption. Unsaturated fats can fill that void majority of the time without doing serious harms to our body. Great, so I'm just gonna raise the camera really fast. Awesome, so I hope you guys like that activity. I'm just going to wrap up with one more comparison of total fat. I really want to talk about the MyPlate because we do, in a lot of our lessons, we go over MyPlate, and I want to emphasize foods that we see on a daily basis that we recommend you trying substituting in your diet based off of our MyPlate recommendations. So I'm just going to clear this off and grab my next activity. So again, when we talk about MyPlate, fat is not a category on MyPlate. We do not see fat listed, fats or oils. Why? Because fats and oils are found in every category on our MyPlate. So 20 to 35% of our total calories should be total fat. Total fat is saturated fat, trans fat, and unsaturated fat. Majority of the time, we recommend saturated fat and unsaturated fat. That's why less than 10% of our calories from the total fat should be saturated fat, and the rest should be unsaturated fat. A couple of other food items that we see in our everyday are milk. So in the grocery store, we see milk products that have different labels. The labels can vary from 2% milk, whole milk, and 1% milk. Now, if you've ever had milk, cow's milk, you would know the difference between whole milk, 2% milk, and low-fat milk. Whole milk actually has a lot more saturated fat in it, just because it is all of the cow's milk. And again, cow is an animal, and animal fats fall under saturated fat. So whole milk would fall under the category of saturated fat. So since we want to limit the amount of saturated fat in our diet on a daily basis, we want to focus primarily on 2% milk and 1% low-fat milk. So my plate and our recommendations are to stick with either low-fat milk, 1%, or 2% milk. 2% milk falls in the middle because it doesn't have 1% of milk fat, but it's not whole milk. So if you're used to drinking milk, whole milk, we recommend that you try and shift over to 2% milk or low-fat milk to get more. You get less saturated fat, and you still get that milk taste. So that's just an example of dairy and dairy products. Next, we're going to go over a vegetable in different forms. So we have two different vegetables here. Oh, one vegetable in two different forms. We have a potato. We have it in French fry form, and we have it in baked form. So a baked potato is potato that is seasoned and baked in the oven or in an air fryer, whatever you use to bake that potato. It can even be microwaved to be softened. That's a plain baked potato. French fries are fried potatoes, and typically they're fried in oil, and they have saturated fat to increase their shelf life and to reduce them from getting stale. In a medium French fry fast food order, there are 23.8 grams of saturated fat. In a baked potato, on the other hand, there's 3.15 grams of unsaturated fat. So when it comes to choosing between a baked potato or French fries, to get your vegetable in, we do recommend choosing an unsaturated fat, which would be a baked potato. French fries, on the other hand, do have saturated fat, so we want to limit the amount of French fries that we eat due to the amount of saturated fat they have. Again, that's about 10 times the amount of saturated fat compared to unsaturated fat in the same vegetable. And our last example is an animal protein in two forms. So we have fried chicken for the first form, and we have grilled chicken breast for the second form. So in our grilled chicken breast or roasted chicken breast, a medium-sized chicken breast has about 1.8 of fat in it. On the other hand, fried chicken has about 10.8 grams of fat. Again, the difference is about tenfold. Fried chicken tends to have more saturated fat, so that is something that we want to limit. On the other hand, chicken breast, even though it comes from an animal, the way that we cook it is very important. So preparing the animal fat is important, and the way we prepare it means it might have less fat in it. So chicken breast would fall under the preferred because it has more unsaturated fat. You cook it with some olive oil or vegetable oil. Again, season it. It would have more unsaturated fat and less saturated fat than the fried chicken, which is fried, so it is increasing its shelf life. So I hope you guys enjoyed this small lesson on unsaturated fats and saturated fats and trans fats. These are the three types of fats that make up our total fat consumption for the day. Some recommendations that we make in order for you to, just decrease your unhealthy fats versus increasing your healthy fats would be to eat less of, animal protein that is high in saturated fats and eat more of lean protein meat, which you would find less saturated fat and more unsaturated fat, and protein, of course. So instead of high fat meats, you can eat more lean chicken, lean turkey. You can do skinless. If you trim the fat off of some of the protein, that will help a lot. Eat more seafood and fish. You get your omegas from them. Those are good fats, and you lose the animal fat. Eating less fast food, from our example, showed that fast food has a higher shelf life, and the method of cooking fast food can sometimes be unhealthy, leading to higher saturated fats and trans fats. So the recommendation there is eat less or limit the amount that you have on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, and have more nuts, those healthy fats that we see in fruit form, like we saw in avocado. You could have more low-fat options for dairy and snacks, like you can have low-fat yogurt, you can have low-fat cheeses, as well as the milk example that we saw. Cooking is a huge thing. Again, we want to cook more with our liquid fats versus our solid fats. So we want to cook more with vegetable oils and avocado oils, olive oils, canola oil. Those are healthier fats to cook with. You still get the same results. They're still tasty, and they're better for your body, your cholesterol, your heart, and other bodily functions that will increase with better fat consumption. We want to limit the amount of solid fats that we cook with, like shortening and margarine and butter. Having these options will make a huge difference in your life, in your calorie consumption. You'll follow my plate better because increasing unsaturated fats means that you'll be eating more fruits and vegetables. You'll be eating, dairy products and things that fall under your total fat consumption being 20 to 35%, and limiting the amount of bad fat that you have on a daily basis. So thank you guys for joining us today. This was healthy fats and oils, knowing the difference, spotting the difference, and making changes in your everyday life. I hope you got something out of this lesson.